This is the story of Ryu, the strongest hunter on Earth, who dies because he was a single virgin loser. In the previous episode, we saw how Youngman killed the musclehead by crushing his skull. Afterward, he came begging to Ryu to come under him, and after begging like a dog, Ryu finally accepted Youngman to come under him. Then, Ryu ordered Youngman to use his authority skill on all his 10 friends to destroy the relic crystal. As soon as they did, all their stats were permanently reduced by 50%, and as a penalty, the Divine Punisher appeared to punish everyone. Now, a new quest has been issued, and everyone has to survive or dodge the attacks of the Divine Punisher for 30 minutes. The Divine Punisher slowly descended to the ground, raising his wand up into the sky. Under his hoodie, 2 creepy eyes stared at the players as he asked, "Any last words?" With that, he tapped his staff onto the ground, and the entire ground started shaking. All the players were hit by a tremendous pressure and could barely stand, while Ryu gazed at the Divine Punisher like an ice cream ready to be licked. Then, the purple energy wave slowly started to cover the entire area, and the system notified everyone that the agent of Divine Punisher had cast a restriction field. As the players tried to run from that area, the purple aura formed a barrier, restricting the players from going outside the area. The players started to panic and feel scared as they tried to break the barrier, but their efforts were in vain. So today's like goal is a little high. It's 6,900 likes. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you. Now let's continue. Another system notification appeared, hitting all the players with the news that the stats of those inside the barrier would be decreased by 50%. Ryu observed this from outside the barrier, realizing that 300 people were now trapped inside, and he couldn't break the barrier to save them. The Divine Punisher started to laugh, and with a flick of his wand, thousands of purple auras formed around him. Ryu, with a saddened expression, turned away from the 300 players and said, "So it has started." Just like that, the Divine Punisher launched his attack toward all 300 players inside the barrier. Each and every arrow found its mark mercilessly, despite the players' attempts to run, hide, or defend themselves. The arrows struck them down mercilessly. Then Ryu explained that under the Divine Punisher's domain, he could gain full control over the space and use his arrows just like his own body parts, ensuring that his arrows would hit the enemy no matter what. Suddenly, Ryu positioned himself at the edge of the barrier, stating that it wasn't a big deal for him since he had fought the Divine Punisher countless times before. Standing just behind the Divine Punisher, Ryu explained that now that he was positioned behind the Divine Punisher wouldn't be able to see him. The Divine Punisher lacked ears and could only sense everything within his barrier. With this advantage, as soon as the entire barrier lifted, Ryu, like a venomous snake, leaped high with deadly intent. He used his seal of death on the Divine Punisher, and before the Divine Punisher could react by turning back, Ryu thrust his black scythe into the Divine Punisher's right eye, popping it like a cherry. Golden blood splattered everywhere, and the Divine Punisher started to scream in pain. Ryu elegantly landed on the ground, and behind him the Divine Punisher was still screaming. In just one hit, Ryu had already drained 40% of the Divine Punisher's health. Then Ryu suddenly started running, and in anger, the Divine Punisher tapped his staff on the ground, initiating the formation of his domain expansion barrier. At this point, Ryu had already memorized each and every move of the Divine Punisher. So before the barrier could trap Ryu, he was already outside the barrier and standing behind the Divine Punisher in his blind spot. Ryu explained that as soon as the Divine Punisher saw that no one was trapped under his barrier, he would release it. During the release of the barrier, the Divine Punisher couldn't attack for 2 seconds, and Ryu only needed that 2 seconds. As soon as the barrier lifted, Ryu, with a dead serious look, dashed toward the Divine Punisher, jumped high, charged his black scythe, and in a swift slash, chopped the Divine Punisher's last eye like a cherry tomato. Golden juice splashed all around the place, and now the Divine Punisher was in immense pain. This was the first time in the last 500 years that anyone had even made a scratch on his body. He didn't even know how pain felt, and now both of his eyes were punctured. As Ryu slowly landed on the ground, the Divine Punisher was still crying in pain like a baby, in immense anger. Before Ryu could leave the Divine Punisher's domain, he casted his domain expansion barrier. Now, Ryu got trapped under the barrier, and all of Ryu's stats got dropped by 50%. Sensing Ryu was trapped under his barrier, the Divine Punisher started to laugh wobbly, saying that now he would kill Ryu by piercing thousands of arrows into Ryu's ears and every hole. But Ryu just stood there with a confident look and a slight smile, saying that without the Divine Punisher's eyes, he would no longer be able to land his lightning arrow on an enemy. He explained that first, he had to see his enemy and mark them, and only then would the attack automatically hit the enemy. Now, without his eyes, he was nothing more than a living waste. In his last cry, the Divine Punisher charged his ultimate attack. He summoned thousands of lightning spears, covering the entire barrier with them. But Ryu had had enough playing with the Punisher. In an instant, he jumped, activated his black scythe, and had already activated the Seal of Death on the Divine Punisher. Thanks to his skeleton necklace and the title he gained from killing the Angel, his stats were now 7.5 times more potent, and with a single slash, Ryu chopped the Divine Punisher left wing. Then, the Divine Protector, still blind, tried to counterattack, but Ryu swiftly, using the staff of the Divine Punisher, jumped even higher into the sky, dodging the attack. Once again, with a swift slash, he chopped off the last wing of the Divine Punisher. As Ryu swiftly landed on the ground, the Divine Punisher was already in immense pain. With this, the Divine Punisher was left standing in silence, wondering what was happening. His job was supposed to be slaughtering players for 30 minutes and torturing them as much as his heart desired. But this was out of script. Suddenly, the Divine Punisher began to tremble and mutter something. Ryu immediately started running away from him. Now, the Divine Punisher was furious, and in a deep voice, he threatened Ryu, saying he didn't know who Ryu was, but now he would chop him into pieces and feed them to holy dogs. Ryu would not have a peaceful death. A system notification then informed everyone that the Divine Punisher had activated his passive skill. He would become invincible, and all his stats would be doubled for 10 minutes. On the other hand, Ryu watched this from the side, realizing that this was why he had popped out the Divine Punisher's eyes. Before his death, the Divine Punisher became invincible, and when the Punisher was blind, he was just a punching bag, as he could only land his attacks by seeing his opponent. Then, with a loud scream, the Divine Punisher waved his staff, and multiple small purple portals appeared around him. Deadly light strikes started landing everywhere under the barrier at random places, trying to hit Ryu. However, Ryu, with all his stats multiplied by 7.5x, easily dodged all the attacks with a smile on his face. Finally, the time came as the Divine Punisher's invincibility wore off. Ryu immediately charged toward the Divine Punisher, and before the Punisher could even move an inch, Ryu chopped off the Punisher's head with a cold look. Golden blood started to splatter like a fountain, and Ryu stood there with a satisfying look on his face. The system notified Ryu that he had murdered the Divine Punisher and leveled up 3 times, gaining a total of 12,200 gold. Additionally, as Ryu was the first in history to kill a Divine Punisher, he earned the title, the one who opposes the divinity. Because of this title, when fighting any divine being, he would take 80% less damage from them. Now, Ryu was standing beside the Punisher, and he had finally made the Divine Punisher into a divine milkshake. But it wasn't the end. The system notified Ryu that an additional reward would be given, as he didn't even get a single scratch from the Divine Punisher's attacks. Just like that, 2 items appeared in Ryu's hand. The first item was the skill Radiance, and without wasting any time, Ryu clenched his fist, breaking the seal, and started to absorb the skill. The second reward was a Condensed Ether. Ryu explained that this was called Condensed Ether, and despite all the gold, skills, and level-ups he had gained, the main reason he defeated the Divine Punisher was for this item. It was an important material for crafting a divine-ranked item. Finally, he successfully absorbed the skill Radiance. With this skill, he now had a passive ability. Ryu's intelligence would increase by 1 with each level, and all his divine-type skills would receive a 1% boost with each level. This meant that as he was now level 30, he would automatically have 30 intelligence, and the same applied to his divine-type skills. Now, the Punisher had been turned into a holy shit, and everyone was just standing there cheering and calling Ryu a monster. Some were even calling him their savior, as he had single-handedly slaughtered the Punisher like a vegetable. As the Punisher's body was disappearing, there was a jittering sound, and an angel appeared from behind, amazed by what she saw. She commented with a, "Wow, amazing." Hearing this, all the players turned back in shock. The angel was floating just above Ryu's head, holding her chest and speaking in a kind voice as she praised Ryu. She couldn't believe that a human had managed to kill a Punisher, even now seeing it with her own eyes. However, Ryu didn't give a shit. He straight up ignored her and was only checking his stats. Noticing that Ryu wasn't responding, the angel playfully came floating closer to Ryu with a smile, folding her hands, and suggested doing an interview. She asked Ryu how he even thought of murdering the Punisher when the system clearly stated only to survive for 30 minutes. Ryu, still not turning back and not seeing the angel's face, replied in a cold tone that he killed the Punisher because he wanted to, plain and simple. The angel curiously asked why Ryu took the risk when with his skills, he could have easily survived the round without risking his life. Ryu explained that even though he could have survived the round, he didn't want to bear the burden of seeing countless players getting slaughtered in front of him when there was a chance to save them after killing the Punisher. Now, hearing that, all the players started to see Ryu with respect and admiration. They thought Ryu was a cold-hearted killing machine, but behind the cold-hearted man, there was a kind soul hiding. Hearing this, the angel went into deep thought, saying, "1 minute, humans kill each other, and the next minute, They want to save each other. Humans are really weird. But then she turned her head away, saying it's none of her business. Ryu, with a warm smile, thought to himself that these celestial beings would never understand human emotion. Then the angel cleared her throat to get everyone's attention. With a mischievous smile, she announced her intention to announce the top 25% and eliminate the remaining players. A huge hologram appeared in front of everyone, and upon seeing it, every player was bewildered. Ryu alone had killed 3,600 monsters, and on top of that, he was level 30. The second-ranked player hadn't even killed 1,000 monsters. Ryu was simply too much of a monster. As always, the system recognized Ryu as the #1 ranked player worldwide and rewarded him with a special prize, an intermediate-grade rare ring selection coupon. Ryu didn't waste a single second and used the coupon. 3 rings appeared in front of him: the Ring of Rushing Wind, the Ring of Azure Magic, and the Ring of Resistance. Ryu chose the Ring of Resistance, which increased his luck by 4 and enhanced his resistance by 30% against status effects. This choice was crucial, as acquiring resistance against status effects was only possible by ranking first in round 3. Lastly, the reward for ranking 1 in his zone arrived as always. This time, Ryu decided not to choose the 50% stat boost, stating that in round 4 there were no monsters to kill, making a stats boost a waste of time. Instead, he chose 4,000 gold. While Ryu was busy managing his stats, a chilling and terrifying voice echoed from behind him. The angel, with a joyful expression, announced that it was time for her favorite game, killing the useless player. After some calculations, she grinned and flicked her hand. Just like that, the players who hadn't made it to the top 25% slowly began to disappear, experiencing immense pain. Finally, after agonizing moments, they died, screaming. The scene then shifted, and we saw Shrin waking up from her bed. First, she checked her body for injuries. Then, she slowly got out of bed, and with a flick of her hand, a cute little creature appeared. This creature had a bee-like head, butterfly-like wings, and a bird-like body. The creature landed on her shoulder, and she explained that these cute creatures were fairies. Thanks to them, she had survived round 3, as the fairies worked as shields to protect her and even healed her wound, and took out a purple crystal from her inventory, saying that she had obtained this mysterious crystal while killing monsters. She stood beside the window, pondering whether to give this crystal to Black Scythe and wondering if he would like it. A blush crept onto her face as she thought about it. Meanwhile, as soon as Youngman woke up from his sleep, he grabbed his lantern and angrily threw it into the wall, shattering it. He was sweating and clearly furious because the system had notified him that the penalty had been applied. Now, all his stats had been permanently reduced by 50%. With this, the episode comes to an end. Please write part 9 inches in the comments. Thanks for watching.